Hello and welcome back, everybody. We've got another episode of Paws and Pals coming at you. We've got a very, very special, a very exciting episode today, as we are going to be doing our joint mock draft. We've got Brian Ramos, we've got Michael Conger, we've got Ricardo Martinez, and we've got myself, Nick Vete, all here. The way we're doing this, so we've structured our draft order. Obviously, the order of the picks, we're all doing 8 picks each. They're not in any specific order. We kind of did it a little bit random. We did it a little bit according to what teams certain people like. And we did it, if a team has 2 picks in the first round, the same person is going to be picking both of those teams. We're also going to be featuring trades. So we're going to try and keep you guys, completely focused on the kind of trades we're doing, who's getting what, and that kind of stuff, just so you guys don't lose track of the order in any way. And we're very excited for this episode, and we hope you guys like it. So with that being said, Brian Ramos, you are on the clock with the number 1 pick, Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh, man, I don't know where to go.
Hey, don't mess it up.
The first pick in the 2021 draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars will select quarterback in Clemson, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I think it's a very obvious pick.
Hey.
He's just a generational talent. I mean, some people say he's one of the best quarterback prospects since Andrew Luck. I mean, I can see it. I don't know how true it is, though, but he won a national championship his freshman year. So, I mean, I think it's just going to be they brought in Urban Meyer. Like, Jacksonville's trying to change around their organization. They also signed Marvin Jones Jr., which could be a key addition. They're just trying to make this Jaguars team better and compete in the AFC South. So the Jaguars, I got Trevor Lawrence.
I mean, come on, there's no question there, right?
No, probably not.
Yeah, exactly. Number 2, New York Jets, Mike.
All right. I'm going to save the theatrics. I'm just going to go Zach Wilson here. There really isn't any opposition to it. I mean, the Jets have seemed like they've really narrowed it down to him. No one else really has made an impression on Joe Douglas. It just seems that Zach Wilson's 100% going to the Jets, and I actually personally love the move. I think he's a great mobile back, arm, accurate. I mean, people knock him for his size. I just don't understand how people can knock a guy for size when they got Kyler Murray balling out in Arizona. And, they even said Russell Wilson was too short. Now he's like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So I'm not going to take size into consideration. I'm going to go purely off what I see. And I think Zach Wilson will be leading the Jets for the 2021 season.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the move there too. I think the first 2 picks are kind of locked in. I think we're all in agreement there. So really, the draft starts now. And with that, Ricardo, you're on the clock. San Francisco 49ers, what do you got?
You're not making this easy for me, man. Like, you gave me some of the hardest picks in this draft.
Because I know you can handle it. Ricardo. That's why I gave them to you.
All right. So, obviously, San Francisco traded up for a quarterback. I mean, what else would they be drafting? Jimmy G, yeah, it might be a solution in the short term, but I mean, when you have 5 different quarterback prospects, 2 off the board, following first 2 picks, all that is just with Mac Jones, and Trey Lance. And I don't know why I've been more inclined. I've leaned more towards Trey Lance. I think my argument there essentially is because he has higher upside, higher ceiling. I mean, Mac Jones, I feel like that's a safe pick, but I would go with Trey Lance, North Dakota State University. And I mean, this is such a huge pick for not just for whoever wants to draft a quarterback following this pick. I mean, Trey Lance is just, I think, apart from Zach Wilson, has the highest upside. So for the Niners, I know that I said something, I believe a couple of days ago, was that Kyle Shanahan was leaning more towards, I believe it was Mac Jones, and then the front office was more leaning towards Trey Lance. So, I mean, ultimately the front office has the ultimate, or the last say in it. So Trey Lance for the Niners.
Trey Lance, third overall pick. And I mean, that's really what hinges the whole rest of the draft, because now you wonder, who's going to get more antsy about Justin Fields, who's really interested in Mac Jones past the 49ers. So there's definitely a lot to consider there. I also think they're ultimately going to go with Trey Lance just because for the long-term future of your organization. I get that Mac Jones may help you win games right now, and you can be a contender with Mac Jones right now. But to pass up on the future of your franchise, to pass up on a guy who could potentially be a top quarterback in this league for so many years to come, I'm with you. I think they're ultimately going to make the decision for Trey Lance. So that brings us to number 4 now, and that is my pick for the Atlanta Falcons. And like I mentioned at the top of the show, we're going to entertain trades throughout. Everybody has their assigned picks. Everybody has their assigned teams who they will be picking for. So that being said, I am picking here for the Atlanta Falcons, and I'm willing to listen to the phone calls for this number 4 pick if anybody has a team that might be interested in trading up. If not, I'll be making the selection. Well,
I wonder if Ryan Pace would. Probably not from the Bears. I don't think he'll go jump 15 spot or 16 spots just for a QB. I think he'll wait. So no, I'll pass.
Yeah, that would be a shocking move up. But
that would be 2 first-round picks. I mean, 1 this year, 1 next year.
Yeah,
be a lot of picks to give up.
the boatload that he had to give up to move up for Mitchell Trubisky, and now he's going to do this again. I mean, that would be an insane move, and it would take a lot of balls for a guy to do that twice in his tenure as GM. So with that being said, nobody's interested. I am going to select with the 4th overall pick, Kyle Pitts, tight end out of Florida. Arguably the best pure talent in the draft, outside of quarterbacks. The numbers that this guy put up in college, the freakish athletic skills that this guy put up, ran a 4.46 40, I believe, at his pro day. Got ideal height and strength for a tight end. And I mean, you look at him as a downfield threat. It's really unparalleled at the tight end position in college. Really, the past couple years, you could even say in the draft. And, I know there's still some questions about his blocking ability at the next level, but I don't think that this is going to be a difficult choice for the Falcons should they keep this pick. So number 4 is going to be Kyle Pitts. Number 5, we're heading back over to Brian Ramos.
So for the Cincinnati Bengals, I mean, it's interesting. There's talks about potentially reuniting Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase, but I think when you have T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and franchise quarterback and Joe Burrow coming off an injury, I think you got to protect him, and you got a so-called generational talent, offensive tackle, Penei Sewell, who's also training to be a guard, which is pretty interesting. So he's training to play pretty much any position in the NFL. But Cincinnati Bengals taking Penei Sewell off the line from Oregon.
Yeah, and I mean, Sewell is a guy who I'm personally a big fan of. I think if he had come in last year's tackle class, which, I mean, if you remember that tackle class had so many great prospects. Tristan Wirfs panned out, Mekhi Becton to the Jets. And I mean, also Andrew Thomas, he hasn't really panned out yet in his career, but I think there's still a lot of promise. Even in last year's class, if he had come out last year, I personally think he could have been the first tackle off the board. And I think the fact that he's getting slept on a little bit for some of these wide receivers, some of these flashy guys, Kyle Pitts included, personally, I think that if Penei Sewell falls a little bit, obviously he doesn't here in our mock draft, but he's definitely someone that's, I think, getting slept on a little bit. And I think he's going to be a cornerstone of an offensive line for a long time in the NFL. So we'll now go on to number 6, and we've got Mike with the Miami Dolphins.
Okay, so they have a few options they can go here. A lot of mock drafts had the Bengals taking Jamar Chase, and then I would have Penei Sewell going into the Dolphins, actually. But here, I think you don't pat up on the best wide receiver in the class. They have a great tight end, 2 good receivers. They have a good running back. They could look to solidify their offensive line. But I think here you don't pass up on the best receiver on the board. I think they go Jamar Chase here, make that offense just absolutely deadly. And it really would show if Tua actually can play. Because if Tua can't win with this type of offense and the way it's built, I don't know if Tua is the guy. You now would have 3 receivers, a tight end, and a running back. There would be no excuses for him. There'd be absolutely no excuses. So this is a pick that not only makes your offense super deadly, but it also helps you figure out your future plans for quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the pick. I like Jamar Chase there, and I agree with everything you said about him. I think personally, I think he might be the best wide receiver of the past three to five draft classes, frankly. And I mean, you're right. I mean, there's going to be eyes on Tua now. I mean, I think his offensive line could still use a little help, and I think his running back group could still use a little help. But both of those classes are deep this year, so I'm with you on that pick.
Yeah, I think that's a good pairing, honestly. I mean, you can't ever really have too many receivers, I guess, but I mean, yeah, I think that's a great pick for the Dolphins. I think they're your AFC East Bulls. I mean, yeah, I think if I were the GM as well, I'd probably make that pick.
I mean, you can't go wrong with any of the receivers in this class. I mean, the top three are just absolute weapons. I could see like either Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith at this pick as well, just so they can reunite back up with Tua Tagovailoa. But I think here you can't pass up on a guy like Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that logic because I think there is a big gap between Jamar Chase and the next two guys. But yeah, I think if Jamar Chase is on the board here and Penei Sewell's gone and Kyle Pitts is gone, I think it's a pretty obvious pick for the Dolphins.
Yeah.
So now we are going to head to number 7. Speaking of hard picks that I gave Ricardo, I mean, who knows what the Detroit Lions are doing? So Ricardo, you're on the clock here, number 7.
All right. Well, I guess I'll start off by saying if I were the Lions, I would be looking to trade back. I know they need a receiver, and among many other things, but I mean, which would make sense for the Lions to trade back for more picks and add more players. So I don't know if any of you are willing to, any of you quarterback needy teams want to trade up with me, the Lions, going once, going twice.
I just got off the phone with Bill Belichick. He's open to trading up. Actually today, a few hours ago, there was reports that New England and Carolina have been talked. So I think if they trade up, it would be around the 8 range. But I mean, New England might be interested because there's still Justin Fields and Mac Jones available on the clock. So,
So we've got interest. Do we have a trade? Are the Patriots and Lions trading here? Is it a done deal? What are we thinking here, Ramos, Ricardo? We agreeing to something?
I want more picks if I'm Lions. So yeah, I mean, I would do it.
You know what? Patriots are trading up. Bill Belichick, he's going up.
We have a trade. Bill Belichick seems to be picking a quarterback here in the first round. We now have Ramos on the clock at 7, picking with the New England Patriots. Ramos, what's the pick?
So with the 7th pick, New England Patriots will be selecting Justin Fields, quarterback from Ohio. It seems like there's the Patriots fans that have been calling for Fields. I mean, simply Cam Newton is just not the answer in New England. I know they've had a lot of players opt out, but I just don't think that he can fit in Belichick's offense. As we saw, Jarrett Stidham isn't the option either. I think Fields has a great arm, and people are already overreacting to this guy, buying in the Fields hype, comparing him to Josh Allen. He's also a mobile quarterback too, so he still has that mobility that the NFL is trending towards. And with the new pickups of Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, I just think that this would be a dream scenario for Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots.
Yeah, and it seems like they've been linked, and it seems like, you know, the adage that's been passed around among sports figures is, well, the Patriots have had such an aggressive offseason. How could they not have an aggressive draft? And I mean, you're right when you talk about the fact that, you know, they have Cam Newton there. It seems like the possibility of trading up for a quarterback is very real. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. On to the next pick. This circles back around to me at number 8, picking with the Carolina Panthers. So where the Panthers are situated right now, I think that they are, you know, given the quarterbacks that are left on the board, I know there's been some talk, but they're also talking about moving back. I'd entertain a trade option, but the fact that Mac Jones is the only quarterback left on the board, I'd rather take my chances with Sam Darnold. I think he's still got a lot of chance. I think he's still got a lot of game left in him. I think he's still got a lot of promising years left in him. So I think that if it comes down to Mac Jones or Sam Darnold in this situation, I think they're sticking with Darnold. And that being said, I have them going with the offensive lineman, Rashawn Slater, with this pick. And Slater is a guy, I know he's been getting a lot of attention lately, and I think he's going to go higher than people are expecting. I've even seen some people discussing him as maybe going off the board first before Penei Sewell. I don't know if I see that happening, but I have Rashawn Slater going here at 8, had some great tape in his 2019 season, including a game against Ohio State where he held Chase Young in check, did not allow a single sack in that year with Northwestern. So I have him going at 8 to the Carolina Panthers here, adding to that offensive line in front of Sam Darnold.
Interesting there. Yeah, I honestly, I think I would have had him going lower. Just in the mock drafts I've done, at least. I feel like you like the teams. But I like that pick for the Panthers. I think that's a good one.
Yeah. So now we will go on. Number 9, Mike, Denver Broncos.
I think with the quarterbacks that are off the board here, I don't think that the Broncos are ready to move off of Drew Lock with Mac Jones. I just don't see it. I can't entertain a reality where they think that Mac Jones is that much better than Drew Lock. I think they got to give Drew Lock a year where he stays healthy, doesn't have any injuries, just is on the field for all 17 games. So here I think they just go best available. I think they go Micah Parsons. I think they do listen to some trades from like maybe the Washington football team to try and snag Mac Jones. But I just don't think that he's the type of quarterback you trade up for. I'm going to go Micah Parsons here to the Broncos.
That's a very interesting pick because I personally am not as high on Micah Parsons as some people. I know that many see him as the best player in the draft, but me personally, at his position where he's, where he's coming in as such a great defensive player, but when you talk about him being an inside linebacker in the NFL, most of the time, that's the position. You're wearing the green dot. You're the signal caller. You're the leader of that defense. And this is a guy, this isn't a guy like Laramie Tunsil a few years who's smoking pot in high school and he's falling. This is a guy who's actually gotten into fights with teammates, altercations with teammates in high school, the college level. That's serious leadership questions to me. So while the talent may be there and a team may scoop him up, I could also see him potentially falling. But, if the Broncos are truly going for that talent, then I think this would be a very good pickup for them on the defense.
I mean, yeah, it's a defensive head coach and Vic Fangio. I mean, more toys to play with for him. I mean, that defense was already pretty solid last season. Another piece to the puzzle. I mean, they could be even better next season.
Vaughn, Miller, Bradley, Chubb, and Parsons. That would be a trio.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, it would definitely be interesting to see that defense in action. So now we come back to the number 10 pick, last pick of the top 10 here. And I am back on the clock, I believe. Let me go back to the list here. Yes, I am back on the clock with the Dallas Cowboys. This is a position where I could see the Cowboys trading back. I think it's very possible they do. I think there's a couple of players they have their eyes on. They've been talked about, maybe a couple of players they'd be willing to trade up for, but I just think the price would be too steep. So I'll entertain the idea of trading back if anybody is interested in jumping up to number 10.
Oh, this is more appealing to a Bears fan or to the Bears front office. But again, it's 10 spots.
It'd be a lot of capital you'd have to give up here.
It would. And with reports that the Eagles may be willing to trade back, and since they have the 12th overall pick, I think the Bears would probably wait until after the Giants pick. So no trade.
All right. Ramos, Mike, both staying pat?
Staying there, yep.
Sounds good. So given that situation, entertain the trade. Nothing happened. Number 10, the Dallas Cowboys are going to be selecting J.C. Horn, the cornerback out of South Carolina. Now, This is a guy, I know this is going to be a big head scratcher for a lot of people, but this is a guy that I know has been rising on draft boards all around the league. I know Patrick Surtain is the other player that people keep alluding to, but J.C. Horn is a type of guy, extremely physical cornerback. I have a quote here from Pro Football Focus, and they put it best. I've continually used this in my mock draft. I have to bring this up again. In Pro Football Focus, they stated about J.C. Horn, he plays every snap like the man across from him personally offended him. This Dallas Cowboys defense was atrocious last year. A lot of it was due to the head coaching, but they've got players on that defense. I think a player like J.C. Horn, who's got a physical edge, is going to absolutely want to destroy the man across from him that's lining across from him. I think that kind of edge is exactly what this Dallas defense is going to be looking for. And in a cornerback class where J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain are both being talked about potentially being the best corner in this class, I think they go with J.C. Horn for those reasons I alluded to.
As much as I hate the Cowboys, I think that would be a great pick for them.
Yeah,
honestly.
So, just to recap the top 10 for everybody listening at home. First overall, we had Trevor Lawrence. Second was Zach Wilson. Third was Trey Lance. Fourth was Kyle Pitts. Fifth was Penei Sewell. Sixth was Jamar Chase. Seventh was a trade where the Patriots moved up to grab Justin Fields. 8 was Rashawn Slater. 9 was Micah Parsons. And 10 was J.C. Horn. I do that a lot where I'm mixing up these quarterbacks' names. Mike, you and I know we were having a conversation. I was calling Justin Wilson. So I tend to mix those up. But that's the top 10 that we have so
I knew there was
far.
going to be one.
You knew there was going to be one. I was getting close. There's only one more quarterback that I had to get off the board before I wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. But yeah, I mixed it up. So that being said, we'll jump right back into it. And Brian Ramos, you will be selecting number 11 for your New York Giants.
Well, first off, Nick, you both nights at the Giants for something, gentlemen. But with that being said, I mean, as a New York Giants fan, I want but with Parsons and Sewell being off the board, I think the Giants should either trade back, but Dave Gettleman, our GM, doesn't get fleeced. And it's weird because our organization is pretty much split 3 ways. Our head coach, Joe Judge, loves Devontae Smith, and he just defended him today, saying that we're football players, not bodybuilders. Devontae Smith a lot of crap for being too small, for being like 6'1", 175. Our organization as a whole just loves J.C. Horn and thinks he could fit right in as a third corner with this team. But he was also taken, and the guy still left is Dave Gettleman, who's in love with and Dave Gettleman loved Micah Parsons with him available. So I think Joe Judge would get his guy Devontae Smith, and he can be
I hate you.
and I honestly don't like it. I don't think the Giants need it. I mean, I'm surprised. Dallas, FU to Philadelphia taking CeeDee Lamb, didn't need him.
I was going to bring that up too. Thanks.
Giants want to learn from Dallas and do it again. I mean, but in all seriousness, though, I mean, we just got Kenny Golladay. He's good. I think the Giants want to stack up and give Daniel Jones as much talent as possible, just so we can know if he can truly be our guy and stuff. And I know we have Slayton, who's a good player, and we do have Sterling Shepard, but he's in a contract here, and we don't even have depth. And I remember a couple years ago when we had guys like Dante Pettis and a bunch of other no-names at wide receivers due to injuries, and our only other wide receiver on our depth chart is John Ross, who's kind of having a career resurrection. So even though I wouldn't want Devontae Smith, I'd rather trade down for a linebacker or an O-lineman or an edge. But Devontae Smith just seems like he's going to be a Giant due to all the reports I've been hearing lately.
Ooh,
Ricardo, okay. I feel like you've got something you want to say.
I'm just like, I would genuinely hate this on draft night if this were to happen, because like you said, Ramos, it would be exactly what happened last year, the big F from the Cowboys drafting CeeDee Lamb. But I mean,
Jalen Waddle means nothing.
I mean, I'll segue into it. Honestly, if you're going to draft a wide receiver, if you're going to be going up against us, twice every year, I might as well draft a position where I can defend a receiver. So I'm going to go with corner. And of course, since you passed up on Patrick Surtain. I'm going to go with him from Alabama. I mean, in many experts' eyes, he's the number one ranked cornerback prospect, arguably one of the top three defender in this class, just overall. Personally, I prefer a receiver. And Jalen Waddle, I mean, he only played 5 games a season ago, but still, I mean, he's explosive. He's like Tyreek Hill. I mean, comparisons to him at least. And I mean, the thing is, I feel like it's best player available. If I were Howie Roseman, I'd probably value Surtain more than Jalen Waddle. So I'm gonna go with the cornerback and hopefully shut Devontae Smith down, his teammate, of course. I'm gone with Devontae. I'm actually so upset right now.
I don't want Devontae Smith. Honestly, my 3
Well,
guys.
I don't want Surtain either, but you took freaking Devontae Smith.
Guys, as a Giants fan is Rashawn Slater, Micah Parsons, and then either Elijah Vera Tucker or the linebacker from Notre Dame. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name.
Yeah, I was considering the Eagles trading this pick with the Bears or something, but I don't know. When you're Howie Roseman, you're in his position when he could be. He could get fired as literally at the end of the next season if things don't go well. I mean, I feel like you have to have an impact player who's just gonna, start alongside Darius Slay. So yeah. Thanks though, Ramos.
It's funny. We've got back-to-back picks of it's funny. We got back-to-back picks of a Giants fan and an Eagles fan, and neither one are happy with what they think their organization is going to decide to do.
Great.
I know Ricardo just loves Howie Roseman, so we won't get into that conversation. We'll save that for when the Eagles are 2-7.
I'm done.
In Philadelphia, I don't really know what to tell you other than that. I mean, I don't even like Gettleman. I like Ricardo. I think if the Giants don't make the playoffs, Gettleman could be gone too.
That's a good point. But do you really think the Eagles are going to make it next year? Sorry, no, we're not getting into that discussion.
Not getting into it. Not getting into it. All right,
no. We'll save it for
draft centric. We're draft centric here. All right. So next up, we have at number 13 picking for the Chargers, Mike. That is back to you.
All right. Just before we start, I just wanted to say I'm just shocked that that Ricardo didn't think Rondale Moore was going to come off the board there for the Eagles. I mean,
so funny.
Talking about underrated receivers, little hidden gems in the draft. Shocked he didn't go Rondale Moore there.
He's not even in the top 5. You know what? Neither was freaking Jalen Reagor last year. What?
That was a good one, Mike. That was a good one. Yeah, little Jalen Reagor, little JJ Arthega Whiteside action.
We love our receivers,
big
right?
Time. Big love those steals of the draft.
Oh yeah, absolute steal. Gonna end up as bust.
All right, so
moving on.
Getting back to my pick. I think it's fairly obvious what the Chargers are going to try to do here. I think they're just going to beef up their offensive line. Christian Darrisaw is a very good option here. I just think they go Elijah Vera Tucker, honestly. I think they take a guy who can play all across the offensive line, a guy who can slide into any position that they need, tackle, guard. I just think he's a very, he can play any position, like I said. And I think they take him at number 13 overall.
Yeah, he's super versatile. He's a player that I absolutely love in this draft, and I think a lot of teams are going to be interested in him right around this range for sure. So, I like that pick as well. All right, then we are going to go to 14 here, and that is going to be back to me with the Minnesota Vikings. And I mean, this is an interesting spot because I'm not sure what exactly I think there's a lot of things the Vikings want to do. And I think there's a lot of different players they might be interested in. I think Elijah Vera Tucker is a guy that they, would very much like to get if he's still on the board there. You mentioned Christian Darrisaw before, but I think we're getting into the range now where we can start talking about some of these edge rushers in the class. And for me, the one that I think is kind of rising up board, there's a lot of question marks around him because he's got a load of talent, but he's had concussion issues in the past. He's dealt with injuries in his college playing time. But I'm ultimately going to go with Jalen Phillips here out of Miami. He spent 1 year with spent 1 year in Miami as the starter during his time there. So I have him going here at number 14 to the Minnesota Vikings. Jalen Phillips. I think if he can stay healthy, stay on the field, I think he could be a very productive player. And I mean, you pair that opposite Daniil Hunter, I think that's going to be very beneficial for him early on in his career as well.
Yeah, they absolutely do not need any more offense. I mean, they 2 receivers. They got to go defense here, in my opinion. I like the pick.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised. I don't see them taking a luxury pick in Jalen Waddle, even though he's on the board. I think you're better off building your defensive or offensive line one way or another. And with Vera Tucker going right before them, I think Jalen Phillips might be the move here. So, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I like the position. I just think for Minnesota, I think Kwity Paye would be a better fit.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, Kwity Paye was another guy that I was considering, but, ultimately when it comes down to those 2 guys, this is a position I think they're going to address. I'll be honest with you. I don't know, which one the organization prefers. I don't know if any of you guys have heard any rumblings, but between those 2, making the pick here as a position that I feel that the Vikings are going to be interested, I have them taking Phillips over Paye.
Well, because I've heard Minnesota and Paye have been linked a lot, but honestly, you can't go wrong between Rousseau, Phillips, and Paye. They're all pretty much the same player. Just maybe Paye has a higher upside, in my opinion. But
okay, so now we are going to move on to 15 here, and that is going to be this is where we had the trade. So the trade that we had earlier, this is where the Lions traded back to. So they will be selecting here at 15, and Ricardo, that will be your pick.
All right. I mean, I'm going to go with the best player available for the Lions, as obviously Kenny Golladay left the team. So I'm going to go with wide receiver Jalen Waddle. I wish the Eagles had drafted him, but Howie Roseman's an idiot anyway. Yeah, I mean, Jalen Waddle, best available receiver left out of the top 3. And, I mean, it fills a position of need. So, I mean, not really much else to say there.
And I mean, could you imagine the situation for the Lions where not only do they trade back and get a plethora more of picks, but at the same time, they're also going to get a guy who's continuously been linked to the Lions, who's continuously been mocked to the Lions all throughout this draft process. I mean, I think I'm with you. I think that'd be a dream scenario for the Lions.
Definitely. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I think that trade helps them because they'll get the draft capital back that they lost when they had to give up Jared Goff. So
very true.
Exactly. I think that'd be a very beneficial move for the organization. So now we go on here to number 16. Ricardo, back-to-back picks the way it worked out with the trade. So you were on the clock with another pick. I'm not sure where they're going to go. So who do I give it to? I give it to Ricardo. Come on. So
all right, I'm back.
Number 16, Ricardo, you've got the pick with the Arizona Cardinals here.
Okay, so obviously I think their biggest need is cornerback because they lost Patrick Peterson in the offseason, went to the Vikings. But the question is, who would they pick if they were to go with a corner? Caleb Farley or Greg Newsome II, which might be a little too high for him at this point in time. But I mean, this one's really tough for me because I mean they could take the risk on Caleb Farley and hope he recovers in time for the regular season. And I mean, he's a better player overall than Greg Newsome. So I think I will take the risk if I'm the Cardinals. Go to Caleb Farley with the 16th overall pick from Virginia Tech.
Yeah, and I mean it's an interesting scenario with Farley for sure, and basically this Cardinals team. I mean, I think it's ultimately going to come down to whatever player is highest on their board at this position is the guy that they're going to pick. I don't think need is necessarily something they're going to address. And I know, some people are still all in on Caleb Farley. I mean, if it hadn't been for the 2 back surgeries, I mean, he would probably be the best corner in this draft, undisputed. Yeah. But right here, yeah, I could see this being a range where Farley ends up going. So that being said, we will move on to 17 now. And here we've got the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders. Sorry, I had it.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
That was. Say that again, Ramos.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
Yeah, that probably sounded so cringy, but whatever. YOLO. even more cringy now. I say YOLO on top of it.
Oh, great. So, yeah, that's fine.
Oh man.
We're I I don't care. We're living with the cringe right now. It's part of the show. Get used to it. So here, interesting position for the Raiders. I mean, last year they drafted a ton of offensive pieces. So I think their main focus is primarily going to be defensively. Christian Darrisaw is still on the board. Perhaps that could be a position that they go. But Mac Jones is still on the board. And I think there's some teams behind me who might be interested, not that far back that we would have to trade. So in this position with where the Raiders are at, I'm going to open up the board for any teams that might be interested in trading up to this 17th slot where the Raiders are selecting. So it's open to you guys. Anybody interested in moving up?
You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm the Bears. I'm going to do it. I'm going to trade up for that 17th overall pick.
All right. Well, now we've got an interesting predicament. Actually, no, we don't. So you're moving up to the 20th selection. Never mind. I misread something there. So that's my bad. So anybody else that might be interested who can make a better offer here?
Ricardo just wants those 3 picks in a row.
I mean,
we're not gonna take that away from him. So we've got the Bears here with Ricardo moving up to 17. So Ricardo, you are on the clock now. The 20th pick will be awarded to the Las Vegas Raiders in that trade, along with a plethora of other picks, but we're not going to get into that right now. So who do you have the Bears taking here at 17, Ricardo? I'm sure it's pretty obvious.
I mean, I'm going to go with, the quarterback, Mac Jones, of course, who's slid all the way down to this. I mean, when you don't have to give up that much draft capital, when you have arguably top 3 draft prospects to many people's eyes, at least, I mean, why not, right? I mean, you have Andy Dalton. You can always sit him behind Andy Dalton for a year. Nick Foles is still there, but I don't know. I mean, this kind of reminds me of when they drafted Mitch Trubisky. They signed, I think, Mike Glennon from the Bucks or whatever, and then they traded up to draft Mitch Trubisky, and this is sort of a similar situation. And I mean, they could have stayed and maybe drafted an offensive lineman, something that fills a need. But I mean, if Mac Jones is, sitting there just kind of falling, I feel like it's the perfect opportunity for the Bears to jump on it and take advantage.
And I think it's also interesting too, where you see, at least for us, the fact that Mac Jones has been so continuously linked to the 49ers, you wonder which one of these teams might take a chance on moving up for him if he slides out of the top 10, top 12 into that range. And I think you also talk about the fact that where this Bears organization is at, Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace, the GM, I believe that's the name, Ryan Pace, right? Yeah. Where they're at right now, they've been there for 3 years. They've already drafted a quarterback, and it's failed with the 2nd overall pick. That was an absolute disaster. This defense is still pretty much a Super Bowl ready defense, depending on how you look at it. So I think going out and getting a guy like Mac Jones, and we've talked about how he is ready to be an NFL quarterback right now. He's more ready than some of these other guys that have come in. I think he's a guy that could come in, and I could see him starting right away, even with Andy Dalton and Nick Foles there. It's not like Andy Dalton's on any major contract, and Nick Foles is there, but I think he's anticipated to be the backup anyway. So I think this would definitely be an intriguing spot for a team like the Bears, or maybe even the Washington football team to move up, or maybe if even they can wait to grab Mac Jones. So he goes there at 17. What do we have next here? Number 18, we are coming back to the Dolphins, and thus we are also coming back to Mike for this pick.
Okay, so I think that the Dolphins are going to look at defense a little bit, but I think here, the way that we have it played out, Christian Darrisaw is still on the board. I think they go Christian Darrisaw to improve their offensive line. They're beefing up their offense. Their defense was not the issue last year. Their defense was one of the best in the league, and I think they can solve some of their defensive needs later on in the draft. This is a pick again, like I said with the Jamar Chase move. I think this is a pick that is like almost a no excuses pick for Tua Tagovailoa. He's going to have now this Christian Darrisaw slot into his offensive line that was, average at best. They were pretty good last year. I think adding this guy improves their offensive line. Tua, just at this point, no excuses. If they go Darrisaw here, no excuses this season.
If it's both of these picks, then yeah, I'm with you. I think a lot of eyes are going to be on Tua Tagovailoa at this point, because he's outside of a top tier running back, he's going to have everything you really covet in an offense, and there's going to be plenty of room for him to succeed. So 18, the pick is Darrisaw. So where do we have next here after 18? here we go back to Brian Ramos with the Washington football team. Let us know what you got, Brian.
So the Washington football team, it's a very, very interesting dynamic. They've been linked to possibly trading up for a quarterback of like Trey Lance, Mac Jones, whichever one really falls. But the reason why I think they stay put at quarterback is because they signed the ageless wonder Ryan Fitzpatrick. With his luck, like he'll take the football team to 500 ball contending for a division championship once again. But then they also have the almost playoff hero Taylor Heineke. They re-signed him to a 2-year deal. Washington could wait and get their quarterback next year. So I think like with this pick that take a look at their defense and their defensive line. It's disgusting. Montez Sweat, Chase Young. It's just disgusting. They get to the quarterback at will to the point where it's just so easy. It makes their back seven, even though they're not that good, look amazing. But I think they still need to improve that back seven. And I just don't know which way. I think they could go linebacker or they could go safety. But ultimately, I think especially because they have Landon Collins, who's not the best pass coverage safety. He's not good in coverage. I think they're going to need more of a coverage guy. And I think they're going to take sorry, I'm just looking at his name again. Trevon Moehrig, the safety from TCU.
Interesting.
Yeah, not necessarily what I was expecting, but it's definitely an interesting pick. And I think he's kind of the consensus top safety in this draft. And Moehrig, I actually, now that you bring that up, I actually love that pick for them because Moehrig is the complete opposite of Landon Collins, where he's a guy who's like a center fielder of a safety, cover sideline to sideline, go up, grab the ball. And he also is pretty good in coverage. And a lot of people think he can improve his play inside the box as well because he's got aggression when he goes in there. It's just a matter of improving form, improving tackling ability. But I think that would actually be a great pair alongside of Landon Collins. So he goes to 19 with the Washington football team, like you just stated. So now we go to, this is where we had the mock trade. So now we go back to 20. This is where the Raiders traded back to the Raiders. Sorry, I had to do it again. I had to do it again. So now we're sitting here with the Raiders, and this is a position where, like I said earlier, I think this is something where they're going to be exploring a defensive player. And, Kwity Paye is still on the board here. We've got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah still on the board here. And I think it's ultimately going to come down to someone at one of those two positions. And at the end of the day, I think I am going to go with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the linebacker out of Notre Dame. This is a guy who can – he reminds me a lot of Isaiah Simmons, who came out last year. He went to the Cardinals at 8th overall in last year's draft. Because Simmons coming in, there was question whether he was going to be really more of a safety or a linebacker because he's really just a rover. And I think that's a lot of what Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is. He's a little lighter than Simmons, but I think he can put on some weight as well. And if he can kind of play in that rover role behind a Raiders defensive line, which has actually gotten a lot better in these past couple drafts, I think that's a move that they could potentially make. So I have him going 20 there to the Raiders.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I mean, I think that'd be a perfect Raiders pick. However, with that being said, the Raiders are probably one of the worst teams drafting in the league. So will they even take advantage of having him at their disposal? Or will it be another bad Mike Mayock pick?
Right.
So now we move on from 20. That was our second mock trade that just rounded out. And we go back to Brian Ramos here at 21 with the Indianapolis Colts.
So Indianapolis Colts, they just lost Phillip Rivers due to retirement. Then they bring in Carson Wentz. Ricardo, you're probably not too happy with the result of that one, but
his jersey too.
But Anthony Costanzo also retired, and I think it was just because of Wentz's injury history. I think they got to bring in another offensive lineman to replace Costanzo. And I think they're going to bring in the 6'6", 320-pound offensive lineman, Tevin Jenkins from Oklahoma State. He could play either left or right tackle. He's athletic, and he has great feet and just can move well in space and can even pull if the Colts want to get crafty. Because I know they also have Quentin Nelson at one of the guards at left guard. So, but
keep going. Go ahead.
I think if the Colts want to be successful and they want to compete in this for the wild card spot, 'cause I think the Tennessee Titans have just been amazing. I think they have the division on lock at this point. But if the Colts want to compete, even though they have a solid team around them, and you want to protect Wentz and have him return to the player he once was, you have to protect him. I know he has weapons now with Michael Pittman Jr. and stuff, but you still got to protect the man. So yeah, I think Tevin Jenkins is a good pick for the Colts.
And when you talk about the rich getting richer, I mean, the Colts already had a really good offensive line last year. And now adding a guy like Tevin Jenkins, I mean, one of the things that I even, he's versatile. He can play both the run and pass. But I mean, just his absolute ferocity on the offensive line to go out and just absolutely get after the guy that's lined up opposite him is something that I love in an offensive lineman. So I love that pick at 21 for the Indianapolis Colts. So we will circle back to Ricardo now, and he will be picking at 22 with the division rival Tennessee Titans, division rival of the Indianapolis Colts, who just picked. So Ricardo on the clock for the Titans here at 22.
Now, I'm glad you didn't do the same thing with as you did with the Giants taking a wide receiver and the Eagles not taking that. So just for that, I mean, no, I was going to do this anyway, but I mean, just thinking about it, the Titans offense, I mean, outside of AJ Brown, sure, they might have Adam Humphries. I mean, a couple players here and there. Corey Davis obviously left in the offseason. So I think I'm going to go with a wide receiver here. And I think I'm going to go with Kadarius. How do you say his last name? Tony. Right? Kadarius Toney. With that 22nd overall pick. I mean, 6 foot. I mean, it's just like, I think it's a great pairing between AJ Brown, Darius Toney. I mean, it's another weapon for Ryan Tannehill to play with and the offense. I mean, sure, they lost their offensive coordinator, but I mean, it's just, I think it would be a great fit, great replacement for Corey Davis, although it might not be like similar. It might be a little different in terms of skill set, but I think this would be a great pick, a great fit for the Titans.
It'll be interesting to see if they end up going with an offensive player too, because they do still have needs on their defense. But yeah, I mean, I think adding a wide receiver to that group, opposite AJ Brown, who's honestly one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league in my mind. Pairing someone opposite him, it can't hurt, especially with the multiple departures they had on their offensive side of the ball. So that brings us now to 23. Mike, your New York Jets are back on the clock. I already know where you're going with this pick. So why don't you tell us what it is?
Fairly straightforward here. We have one of the worst corner groups probably in the league. We got the bum Lamar Jackson, who gave up the friggin' touchdown to I don't even remember. It doesn't matter. We lost.
Henry Ruggs.
Sure. We're 100% going corner here. If there's the top 4 available, we're going with Greg Newsome. Not really much more I could say about it. I mean, the guy was a stud in college. He's going to come into this corner room and just take over. There really isn't any competition, so I think he'll slide right into cornerback 1. I think great pick at 23 for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I could potentially see him going a little higher than that, but I mean, if he's there for the Jets, that'd be very fortunate in that spot. Now we come to 24 in the draft, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I will be making that selection. So, obviously the talk, everybody's been talking about it. Is it Najee Harris? Najee Harris this, Najee Harris that. I don't even know if he's necessarily the best running back in this class because, frankly, Javonte Williams out of North Carolina is a guy that I think is going to be an absolute stud at the running back position in the NFL. And he reminds me, not in his playing style, but just the lead up to the draft of not getting a lot of talk, kind of like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then sneaks into the first round. I still think it's a little early for him to go. And my general philosophy on running backs when it comes to the NFL draft is don't take them in the first round. You can find running backs in the second round. You can find them in the third. You can find them in the fourth. You can find them in middle round picks, late round picks. It's not a necessity when there are still cornerstone positions that need to be addressed in the first round. And for the Steelers, cornerback would be one they'd like to address. It's a reach here if they take anyone. The other guy that they've been linked to potentially is the 2 edge rushers, Azeez Ojulari and Jason Owe, both guys they've been linked to. And obviously Kwity Paye is still on the board. It's not necessarily a position of need, but given the fact that edge rusher, they could still address, and running back is a position they also could address. I think it's going to come down to those two positions. And though it is not the decision I would make, the general talk is that the Steelers have been very linked to Najee Harris, and he is one of the top 5 players that they're looking to draft in this position. So with that being said, I have them taking Harris at 24, even though it is not what I do, but this is what I expect to have happen.
Yeah, you definitely just were. You've been saying this all off season, just like you didn't want him to draft running back, but like you said, if he's a top five like players they'd want to get. I mean, it makes sense, especially after losing James Conner.
Yeah, and I mean it's one of those things where like I said, I wouldn't do it, but given the circumstances, given their needs, given that another offensive lineman might be a little bit of a reach here, and this is a deep class where you can get offensive linemen in the second, third round. I don't think they pass up on Najee Harris here if he's still available, and some of these other guys like Greg Newsome or Tevin Jenkins are off the board, unless they really fall in love with one of these edge rushers. So, yeah, I have him there at 24. The next pick we have here, we're circling back around to Brian Ramos with the Jacksonville Jaguars at 25.
This one's a tough one. I mean, obviously, the Jaguars are back. Their war room's a mess right now. They picked up Trevor Lawrence. They with the first pick, but the second pick in the first round, I mean, I just don't really know where their heads are at because, like, right now at this point in the draft, it's very edge and D-line heavy, but they've been drafting a lot of defensive linemen for the last few years now. And I was also thinking they can maybe go corner and improve the secondary, but they also just drafted CJ Henderson last year. So I don't know where the Jaguars are looking. I mean, the only possibility is they could trade it. They can draft an offensive lineman, but at this point, I think they're reaching for one. So I'm open to potentially trading back if anyone's interested.
Interesting scenario. That's something I should have brought up with the Steelers, but oh well, you live and you learn. I don't know if anyone would have traded up there. My other 2 picks are the Saints and the Buccaneers. I think if anything, the Buccaneers might try and trade back out of 32, and the Saints later on. I don't know if they have a pressing need here, so I'm going to stand pat with my 2 other picks.
Yeah, I don't think the Bills or the Browns really need to trade up for any particular position. I think they'll just go with the best player available. So I'll also stand.
Yeah, I got the 2 Ravens off first round picks, so I doubt they'd trade up. They got 2 of them in the first. So
sorry, Ramos.
Well, actually, I don't know if we can do this. I trade with myself here.
Hey,
okay.
Hey, it's on the board, man. If you want to do it, go ahead and do it.
I think the Packers are going to trade up to 25 here, trade 4 spots up, and I think they're going to finally give Devontae help. And I think they're going to take Rashad Bateman, the wide receiver from Minnesota.
Wow. Break that curse, all right. I like that as well.
You know what? That's a pick I absolutely love because they are stealing Rashad Bateman right from underneath the nose of the Ravens. I absolutely love that pick, Ramos. I love it.
I just think the Packers need help. I mean, Tony could have also been a good fit for them, but he was taken. The Packers, they'll just get this explosive receiver. I think Bateman's special. And the Ravens are also going to need a receiver because it just looked like Lamar Jackson was throwing to a bunch of nobodies. Like Marquise Brown didn't even have that good of a year. So I think the Packers jumped the gun. Nick, you were probably very proud as a Steelers fan. But, yeah, I think the Packers were Rashad Bateman. I mean, they already pissed Rodgers off by taking a quarterback, and he won the MVP or had an amazing year. I actually don't remember if he won the MVP, but he had an amazing year. I just think you can't piss off Rodgers again, and you got to get him some help.
Yeah, like I said, I love the move, and I know Bateman lined up. I think he lined up in the slot like 65% of the time in college. So he's a guy that can play in the slot, and he's also got a good frame for a wide receiver as well. So there's a lot that he can do opposite Devontae Adams. I really like that pick, Ramos. So that trade there is at 25, and now we go on to 26, where we have the Cleveland Browns. And Ricardo, you are back on the clock here for the Browns.
All right. Well, I mean, if I'm the Browns, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about best player available, but at the same time, I'm also thinking about improving the defense, especially. So, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about um, this player, Christian Barmore, the D tackle from Alabama. I mean, I feel like people sleep on him. I mean, like just I mean, he might be more of a pass rusher. I mean, it also would make sense for the Browns to draft him because they lost Sheldon, or I think it was Sheldon Richardson in the offseason. Um, and so, I mean, that's a huge need of theirs too. Plus, I mean, he is like, sure, he could be better against the run, but I mean, just think about it. You add him into the lineup, and you have what Miles Garrett on one side, Jadeveon Clowney on the other, and then just like that's a really good defensive line right there. And you're gonna need that in order to slow down a lot of these teams in the AFC North.
So what was the pick again? Say it one more time.
Christian Barmore.
Barmore.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yep, out of Alabama. So that being said, now we move on from 26 to 27. And Mike, you are on the clock with the first Ravens pick here in the first round.
Alrighty. So Ravens need a couple things. I think they can definitely use an edge rusher after losing Matthew Judon to the Patriots in free agency. I think they could also, there was a lot of talks recently that they were looking to upgrade the receiving core. There's no real like huge wide receivers here. I think you can't Kwity Paye has slid all the way down here. I think they go Kwity Paye here. I think they improve a position that they lost here, and Kwity Paye, dominant in college, comes in, slides in at their edge. I think it's a great pick at 27.
Yeah, and I mean he's also pretty versatile as well because I know he played a lot both inside and outside on the edge in college. So yeah, I think that's a good pick, and he's also got a lot of leadership intangibles, which I think that's super important for a guy, up front on the defensive line to come in and just be a good president. I think that's an intangible that maybe gets a little overlooked, but yeah, I think him going there at 27. I was hoping you'd leave him for my next pick because I'm picking 28 here for the Saints, and I thought that would have been a perfect fit had he been able to slide all the way down. But that being said, I think the edge rusher class still has talent here at this point in the draft. So I have them going with another edge rusher, and I am going to go with Jason Owe out of Penn State. Azeez Ojulari is still on the board, but I have them going with Jason Owe just for the simple fact that while Owe did not have a single sack his senior year, he showed a lot of athletic promise. And he actually showed increase from, I think it was 2 sacks to 5 sacks his first years with Penn State. Then he started because Yater Gross-Matos went out in the draft last year, and just an athletic freak. And he actually got to the backfield at a pretty high percentage rate. And though he wasn't finishing the play on the quarterback, he was disturbing it. He was causing pressure. So I think stuff like that doesn't go overlooked. And if he can, get a season or two and kind of develop, maybe get rotational minutes at the start of his career, I think that's a role that he can come in and flourish in New Orleans under the Saints defense, with the Saints defense. So I have him going 28 to the Saints there. So what do we have next here? That would be 29, the Green Bay Packers. Brian Ramos, you're on the clock. Oh, no, excuse me. You traded up. My mistake. This is where we had the mock trade. So trading back in this scenario, Brian, you're still making the pick, but you're making it with the Jaguars.
Yeah, so Jacksonville Jaguars. I still don't know. Like, I'm on the phone with their GM right now. They're not giving me much leeway here. I don't really know. But I think just because the Jaguars had one of the worst rosters in football last year, resulting to their only one win, they need a lot of help. And I think just because that they took Trevor Lawrence, who's an offensive player, and they addressed offense in free agency by adding Marvin Jones Jr., and they having a solid running back in James Robinson, who kind of broke out as an undrafted free agent. I think they'll address the defense with this pick, and they'll take linebacker Zaven Collins from Tulsa.
Yeah, I like that pick. It's going to be interesting to see, because he really is one of the best players still on the board, but it's going to be interesting to see how he plays with Miles Jack there too, how those two coexist. But yeah, if they can find a way to mesh, I think that would be a very dangerous combination. So we move to 30 now, and we've got Ricardo, Buffalo Bills, his final pick of this mock draft.
All right. So with the Bills, I mean, they're already on paper. I mean, they have a really good roster. And realistically, I could see them trading out of this pick, but for the sake of time and just like, yeah, we'll save that. So I think they'll address the defense with this pick. And this might be a little early, but I'm gonna go with someone who can line up across from Tre'Davious White. They already have one lockdown corner, so I'm gonna go with another and go with Asante Samuel Jr., cornerback out of Florida State, where his father was a player in the NFL as well. So I'm gonna go with him. Just to add another key piece to that defense. It's already really solid. They could have. I mean, I feel like they could go defensive line here because it's not exactly. They're not getting any younger essentially, but I think this would be a great fit.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely the next best corner after the top four. And I think the fact that he's not going to be there when they're picking again in the second round. So I could see them going here potentially as well. So that brings us to the 31st pick in the draft. And that will be Mike with the second Baltimore Ravens first round pick.
Okay, so obviously the Ravens acquired this pick a couple days ago in the trade of Trent Brown. So here, I really want to go receiver. I really do. I just don't know if they can rationalize taking a Rondale Moore, not a target receiver like they need. They really have Marquise Brown as their speedy guy. I mean, I don't know. Do you guys know how big is Elijah Moore? Is he a bigger guy? Because I know Rondale Moore is a short, speedy guy.
Yeah, I think he's definitely bigger than Rondale Moore. But let me see if I can get his exact measurables right now. I want to say he's 6'1".
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
I have him here at 5. I know he played a lot out of the slot, but he's listed here as 5'9". But I'm not sure what his combine height was. Excuse me, his pro day height.
Oh boy. All right. So I mean, here I think they just gotta go with best available receiver. They've been talking for the past week or two about upgrading the receiving core. I don't know if you get that later in the rounds. I just go with like best available receiver. I think they go Rondale Moore. I mean, he was lightning fast in college. I've never seen a faster player outside of maybe what's his name? The Anthony kick returner. Insanely game-breaking speed. I think they'll have to figure out a way to use him, but I think they take Rondale Moore, upgrade their receiving core and give them.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how he fits alongside Marquise Brown because they're both very similar players. But, I know they've also been linked a lot to Terrence Marshall Jr., so I think that might be a guy they're more interested there in that pick. But wide receiver is definitely going to be something they're looking to address in this area. And lastly, with the final pick in the first round, that would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'll be making that selection. And for me, it's a pretty simple pick here. The Buccaneers don't have any pressing needs. They're returning all 22 of their 22 starters from last year's Super Bowl team. So I think they beef up their defensive line a little bit, get another guy that can rotate in there during snaps, and that's going to be Azeez Ojulari from Georgia. I think he's got room to grow, but also a very promising prospect to come in and help right away. So I have him as the final pick here in this mock draft. So guys, it's been a pleasure. I've totally enjoyed filming this episode. Any final thoughts from any of you three?
Nah, I mean that was great. I mean we had a lot of fun. Just when Ricardo was making one of his picks. Forget about a Woj bomb. We got a pause bomb.
Yes, sir.
With the little Eagles ran about dropping the ball.
Oh goodness! Don't get me started again.
But I mean, I just can't wait till Thursday. I'm on the edge of the seat. Like I'm getting bumps about the Giants messing this up. Like it's gonna be a great night.
Should be great, yeah.
I think we're all looking forward to it. And the NFL draft will be kicking off on Thursday, the 29th. I believe that first round is going to be both on ABC and ESPN and the NFL Network. So be sure to tune in. I know we all will be. Maybe we'll all be watching together. I know at least 3 of us will be. Ramos, you're going to come over and watch it, I'm sure. So we'll figure that out. So thank you all for tuning in. This has been a blast. We've all enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it. And thank you, everybody. Take care. Have a good evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you're listening from. We've been Paws and Pals.
Yeah.